rubber match of a critical three-game series between two National League East rivals trying to win a bid to baseball's postseason. Jimmy Rollins and the Phillies try to take the series from David Wright and the Mets. It is wet in New York, but the tarp is off the field. Sunday Night Baseball, presented by Taco Bell. And it has been a series dominated by the starting pitchers so far. Tonight we'll see how they do in the mud. On Friday, the Mets' R.A. Dickey, the knuckleballer, was at the top of his game. Protecting a 1-0 lead, Dickey proved almost unhittable as he shut out the Phillies and shut them down with a complete game one-hitter. Mets 1-0. Game 2 yesterday. The Phillies' Roy Halladay was just as dominant. The National League Cy Young contender shut out the Mets with 8 strong. He also struck out 8. The Phillies evened up the series 4-0. So in the National League East, the Atlanta Braves with a resounding victory over the Dodgers today by 2.5 at the moment over the Phillies. And the Mets are third, but a distant third, 9.5 games out. In the National League wild card, it's really tightly bunched at the top. The Giants lost to the Padres today. The Phillies are just a half game back of the Giants at the moment, as are the Cardinals. Colorado 5 games out after beating Milwaukee. Hello, everyone. I'm John Miller, along with my Hall of Fame partner, the great second baseman Joe Morgan. Our ace right-hander, Oral Hershiser, has the night off. Welcome to Sunday Night Baseball. We've got the Phillies. They've been ravaged by injuries this year. 15 players have been on the disabled list at one time or another. And right now, slugging second baseman Chase Utley is still there. He could be back by Tuesday, so a ray of hope there. Slugger Ryan Howard also hopes to be back on Tuesday, perhaps more of a long shot. Meanwhile, Raul Ibanez, after a slow start, has hit .340 since the All-Star break. But Joe, almost any Philly will tell you that the key man is the one they call Chooch, the Phillies catcher, Carlos Ruiz.
Well, John, anytime some of your regulars go down, it offers an opportunity for someone to step up. Carlos Ruiz has stepped up. He is now the heart and soul of the Phillies. He gets a lot of big hits, and the pitchers love to throw to him. But the one good guy that they haven't had on the disabled list is Charlie Manuel. Thank goodness for that, because he manages his personnel about as good as anyone.
Charlie has had great success, maybe the best manager the Phillies have ever had in terms of the success he's enjoyed. Meanwhile, the Mets, their offense has been slumping for a month. Even so, they've won 4 of their last 7, but all of the wins have been via shutout. Now, that includes tonight's starter, Mike Pelfrey. He went the first 7 in beating Ubaldo Jimenez 1-0 here on Tuesday. So Pelfrey tries to get them this big game tonight.
Well, John, the Mets have been hot this year and they've been cold. What they haven't been is consistent. They started off, they had a 12 out of 13 game winning streak. They won 12 of 13. They also lost 10 of 13. Now they've lost 10 of their last 28 coming out of the All-Star break. So the Mets have struggled from an offensive standpoint. If they're going to stay in this Eastern Division race, they're going to have to find some offense. And I don't know where they're going to find it from.
Well, they need to win this one tonight because they're heading out on the road. They have not done well away from Citi Field. So we've got Kyle Kendrick on the hill for the Phillies. Kendrick, who was very poor in his last start. And he will be up against Mike Pelfrey, who's ready to go. Heading in from the bullpen out in deep right center field. Pelfrey to face J-Roll Jimmy Rollins when we come back.
Baseball is presented by Taco Bell. Think outside the bun.
It's not a heavy rain, but a steady rain that's been falling ever since they took the tarp off about 40 minutes ago. So it's going to be wet out there. The weather right now is 76 degrees. So it's a very warm evening. A 14-mile-an-hour wind that was blowing out toward right field before game time, and the forecast is for more showers. So Mike Pelfrey on the mound for the Mets. There's Charlie Manuel, the Phillies manager. Sixth season, and this club has won 55% of its games under Charlie Manuel. They've been to the World Series 2 years in a row. The Phillies batting order now presented by Taco Bell. Jimmy Rollins leads off at shortstop. Shane Victorino just back for the disabled list on Friday, center field. Placido Polanco at third base. Raul Ibanez, and although he's been shut down the last couple of days, he's been hot since the break. Left field. Jason Worth in right field. He also has swung the bat well. Greg Dobbs, great history of success against Pelfrey. At first, Carlos Ruiz, the catcher, hitting seventh. Wilson Valdez at second base, batting eighth. And Kyle Kendrick is the pitcher, batting ninth.
And John Pelfrey pitched great in his last outing. 7 shutout innings. And they say they found something in his delivery. He was slowing his arm speed down on his breaking ball and his splitter. So they speeded up his arm, and that also helped his sinker. So we're going to be able to tell right away if he's on top of his game. The two-seam fastball, the sinking fastball, is his bread and butter pitch.
We'll also find out how well he copes with wet conditions.
Well, I'm surprised that they're starting the game, because if you look at second base, it looks like there's water out there, and you shouldn't start a game if there's water standing out there on the infield.
And that's a called strike at the inside to Jimmy Rollins. 1 ball and 1 strike.
I mean, this looks like that's water. That's what it looks like from up here, and the reflection from the lights.
Right back to Pelfrey. Run away.
And remember, they had tarps on the infield. That's Davis at first base. And there is some water coming up, as you can see. And remember, they didn't have a tarp on the outfield, so the outfield is wet.
Although this outfield, like many of those in the eastern and central time zones, has a subterranean pumping system that can help keep the water from collecting out there and help keep the footing. But when it's raining, it's going to be wet. That's it. Ball 1 to Shane Victorino. Hitting only .251. He got 15 home runs, though. And now moving to his left is Castillo. And from the edge of the outfield grass throws out Victorino. Didn't look like he had terrible problems on that one.
Well, the problem is you can't gauge the hop. If it's wet, you don't know if it's going to skid or not.
The Mets on the field with Chris Carter, Carlos Beltran, a 3-time Gold Glover, and Angel Pagan around the outfield from left to right. David Wright, 2 Gold Gloves at third. Jose Reyes at short on the right side. The veteran Luis Castillo, 3-time Gold Glover at second. Ike Davis, the rookie, at first. And the catcher is also a rookie, Tolley. And Mike Pelfrey is on the mound. Pelfrey and Josh Tolley, the battery. Placido Polanco. It's a steady rain. Again, it's not a heavy rain. Not a driving rain. Here's David Wright on the high hop. And that is a very quick first inning. A 7-pitch inning for Mike Pelfrey. So he seems to be just fine in the mud. Kyle Kendrick will take the hill. Reyes coming up for the Mets. the manager of the Mets, in the New York dugout as the grounds crew is on the infield working on those wet areas. The Mets batting order presented by Taco Bell. Jose Reyes leads off at shortstop. Angel Pagan in right field. David Wright third base, and he's been struggling big time in the month of August. Carlos Beltran in center field, and he has not done well since coming back from the DL. Ike Davis, exciting, powerful rookie first baseman. Chris Carter, another young guy at left field. Josh Tolley, the catcher, 23 years old, hitting 7th. Luis Castillo, the veteran, at second, and Mike Pelfrey, the pitcher, is batting 9th. And the grounds crew is out with the water-absorbent sand-like material, trying to cover up all those wet areas and dry them off a little bit. The rain had been falling on an exposed infield now for about the last 45 minutes.
And the starter for the Phillies, Kyle Kendrick. Kendrick is a control pitcher. He's not a strikeout kind of guy. He has 2 walks or less in 16 of his 18 starts so far this season. So you'll see a sinker, slider, and a cutter.
So throwing strikes, that's what he's about. And there is ball 1. Not a strike. Too low. He got shelled in his last outing against the Dodgers 5 days ago, last Tuesday. And this could be trouble in the wet going. Jimmy Rollins, and it falls. Raul Ibanez never took charge on that one. Behind him, the outfielder. Rollins looked like he overran that ball.
Well, I think this can definitely be attributed to the conditions, because Jose Reyes would have also been at second base on this play because he was running. The ball is popped down the line right there, kind of in no man's land. Jimmy Rollins goes out. He has a chance at it, but as you said, he kind of overran it, and it drops in front of Ibanez. Jimmy thought he was going to be able to make the play, but he wasn't able to. And, of course, like I said, the conditions kept Jose Reyes from trying to get to second base on that pop-up.
The wind is blowing out toward right field. We had it at 14 miles per hour at game time. So that might have pushed it back a little bit from the point where Rollins thought it was going to land as well. There's a bunt foul by Angel Pagan. Pagan hitting .305. These last 2 years, he has really developed as a very fine player. Pagan, 10 homers, 53 batted in. He's got a .363 on base average. He's stolen 28 bases. Pagan, not Jose Reyes, but Pagan is the one who leads the Mets in steals. Reyes diving back to the bag safely.
And a lot of his success can be contributed to razor shines at first base. He has taken over the chance to turn him into a major league player, both on and off the field. He works with him before the game, even in the dugout. He talks to him when he gets an opportunity.
Reyes with a long lead at first. He has 23 steals this year. There he goes. Ruiz throw. He's out. Perfect throw by Carlos Ruiz.
Well, that would be one of those that you'd have to throw on the instant replay. It's a very close play at second base. Jose Reyes thought he got his hand in there.
Arguing with Ed Rapuano, and now Jerry Manuel's going to come out. You see Reyes walking off, shaking his head.
Yeah. Well, I think what you'll see is that his hand is what he thinks he got his hand in before the tag. Reyes with an average jump, not a great jump. And you can see clearly that he got his hand in there before the tag. Again, watch his left hand. And Jimmy tags him on his left side. Watch. His hand is there. He tags him on his arm, actually. And it appeared to me that he got in there before he was tagged.
So 1 out, nobody on, and that is too high. 1 ball and 2 strikes to Angel Pagan. Outside the Lines today on ESPN ran a program about officiating, not just in baseball, but all of the sports. Rollins throws out Pagan, just barely got him. Pagan hustling up the line. And 2 men to go. But a lot of players, past and present, I say a lot. There were players, past and present, even a former umpire, now retired, who thought maybe more replay than is currently used in baseball might be in order. And that's what you were alluding to, Joe.
Yeah, well, the outside the lines piece basically said the umpires get it correct 80% of the time. They said 66% was perfect, and then 14% was too close to call. So I give them the benefit of a doubt for those 14. So 80%.
Well, plus they're looking at all of them
right
on replay with slow motion and freeze frames and whatnot. A 2-week study was conducted by Outside the Lines to get a sense of how often umpires made the right or wrong calls on close plays. Those results were released today, and there are the numbers. 80% either absolutely correct or too close to say one way or the other. The researchers used footage of all games from June 29th to July the 11th, 184 games in total. They reviewed every call with the exception of balls and strikes.
If someone would have asked me, I would have felt it was going to be closer to 90% than 80%.
And again, it was a 2-week period and sort of randomly chosen, but it was every game that was played in that 2-week period. Whether that's representative of an entire season, we don't know, but it's all we had. There's a base hit to center for David Wright, and that had to feel awfully good. He'd had only 4 hits in his last 41 at bats.
See, that's one of those situations. If you were going to use instant replay, they may have changed the call at second base with Jose Reyes, and it may have resulted in a run. Although we don't know, because they may have pitched Wright differently with a runner in scoring position.
So Reyes, he felt sure that he was in there. Here's Carlos Beltran, switch hitter, with Wright at first. Wright is a guy who can steal a base. He has 16 steals this year. The umpiring alignment tonight: Ron Culpa back of the plate, Lance Barksdale at first, Ed Rapuano at second, and the crew chief, Tom Hallion, at third base. It's a wet night in New York. No score in the game. Beltran, when he's right, is a real power threat, a great power hitter. He's had 92 at-bats since returning from the disabled list this year, and only 1 home run, 1 triple, 6 doubles, a .217 batting average. 1 strike to count. And that is off the inside. 1 ball, 1 strike, facing Kyle Kendrick with 2 down and Wright at first.
Well, you can see he's wearing a brace on his right knee.
Jerry Manuel thinks that has hindered him in his efforts. That ball misses, and it is 2-1 now. And he had a talk a few days ago with Beltran and said he was not going to continue to play him every day. He has not done well, and he thinks that he's not the same player right now with that knee brace and whatever knee problems he still has after the surgery. 2-2 the count to Carlos Beltran. When he's right, this is a guy that was truly exceptional. A big home run threat. He regularly hit between 30 and 40 home runs. And also excellent speed, a Gold Glove center fielder, a base stealer. Few better than Beltran. And the count goes to 3-2 now. Beltran has hit as many as 41 home runs in a season. 38, 33. He's driven in more than 100 runs 7 times in his career. 3-2 the count. David Wright at first. He runs into right field, base hit. And David Wright goes over to third. Third hit in the inning for the Mets, but that call at second obviously looks like a huge call now.
Well, it looks like the infield especially is getting wetter, and they put some dirt out there near the spots we showed you at the beginning. But if you look here and here, it's just getting really wet out there, and I don't know if you can continue to play.
I haven't seen a game being played under conditions that, at least from up here, look quite like that since the World Series of 2 years ago, when the Phillies and Rays played in the. At that time was a very heavy rain falling.
Well, like you said, this is not heavy, but it's steady, and it's going to continue to soak the infield.
Ike Davis. Mets have a lot of homegrown talent that has reached the major leagues this year. Ike Davis is one of the best of those so far. He came up and immediately started hitting home runs. Ike Davis has spectacular power. 15 homers, second among all rookies in the majors. Second in RBIs. Fourth in runs scored. Tied for fourth in doubles hit. And he hit one that was particularly spectacular in this ballpark, out over the bullpens in right center field, up under the Shea footbridge. See that metal structure out there that connects the main grandstand to the bleacher area? He hit it onto that bridge. Shallow center. Victorino. And the Mets get 3 hits, but they do not score. And Ike Davis swinging away on a 3-0 count. Raul Ibanez, Jason Worth coming up for the Fighting Phils. In rainy New York, I'm John Miller with Joe Morgan, Oral Hershiser with the night off. And she didn't bring her slicker nor an umbrella. What did she bring there? I don't know. It doesn't look like it's working. But this guy is prepared. And he's got a huge Mets cap as well as a plastic hoodie. So he's got his foul weather gear. And it is a night to have come prepared, or at least stay under cover, because it is raining here at Citi Field in New York. No score. The grounds crew again has been out doctoring the infield dirt, although I don't know that we call it dirt any longer. But that water absorbent sand-like material. David Wright surveys the area where he's playing. Well off the third base line is Raul Ibanez. Leads off for the Phillies. Left-handed hitter with power, facing Mike Pelfrey. And that is ball one. Pelfrey had a fine first inning, 7 pitches and out.
And that has been his problem, John. He has a lot of problems early in starts when he does not pitch very well. So we may be looking at one of those successful outings for Pelfrey if the rain holds and stays away.
He shut down the Colorado Rockies in a night when he really needed to. They were facing Ubaldo Jimenez, the exciting young right-hander of the Rockies. Jimenez came in with 17 wins. He allowed 1 run, but Pelfrey none, and the Mets won that game 1-0. It was Tuesday night. That's back out of play toward the press box. 2-2 the count to Ibanez. Pelfrey, though, while he pitched exceedingly well in that game, that had not been the story for him for a long period of time before that. It was his first win since nearly 2 months ago.
Well, he started off great, and the Mets fans thought he should have made the All-Star team. He was 10-2, and then he went into a stretch where he was 0-4 in 7 starts afterwards.
And really got lit up. He averaged fewer than 5 innings per start in that time. There's a splitter for the strikeout. Ibanez thrown out by Antoli.
And we were talking about Pelfrey and his arm speed, how he's been able to get more arm speed, which gives his two-seamer more movement. And there you see his ground balls. That's what he's getting. Even though the pitches are up, there's still movement, and the hitter is hitting on top of him because he has such good movement on his fastball. All sinkers do not have to be down below the knees to be effective. As long as there's good sink action and you do not get them too high, the hitter will hit the top of the ball anyway.
And now Jason Worth at the plate. In there at the knees for a called strike. Worth hitting .301, 16 homers, 60 batted in. He also leads the National League with 38 doubles. His numbers are pretty good, actually.
Until you look at his runners in scoring position.
That's another story. At the knees again. Strike 2 call.
Well, he's fooled Worth here. Worth is one of those guys that looks for pitches. He's fooled him because he has not thrown the sinker. He's throwing the four-seam fastball. And there you see what he's hitting with runners in scoring position, the lowest in the National League.
1-2 the count. So he must be, if his overall average is .301, he's hitting .158 in those clutch at bats. His average with nobody on must be huge. In the dirt, the splitter off the outside. 2 balls and 2 strikes. Worth has been more or less the Iron Man. You see Ryan Howard, who is on the disabled list, and the Phillies have had a lot of injury problems. The only guy with even a chance at this point to play 150 games is Jason Worth. Along the right field line, that is a base hit. Pagan, and he was able to maintain his footing on a slippery track out there, holds Worth to a single.
Well, that's the four-seam fastball that doesn't sink, and he was able to fight it off down the right field line. We were talking about the ball sinking before. You'll see this is a four-seamer, no sinking action there, and it stays in the middle of the plate, and he's able to fight it off, get underneath it, and hit a line drive. If that ball was sinking, he'd hit the top of it, of course, maybe get another ground ball, but that was a change for Pelfrey. He's been throwing the two-seamer, and he went back to the four-seamer against Wirtz.
Well, here comes Greg Dobbs. Dobbs, who has had a great history of success against Mike Pelfrey, and that's why he's in there tonight. .538 lifetime average against Pelfrey. And he yanks that one foul. Dobbs has been a very reliable role player for the Phillies that you could insert at more than one position against a tough right-hander, and an excellent pinch hitter. This year hitting only .196 in 138 at bats. And he has not had any success to speak of as a pinch hitter. 5 hits in 42 pinch hit at bats. He is the first baseman tonight, and this is the first time this year he has made a start there. Howard, of course, starts when he's healthy. And Ross Glode, who has had a very strong year, has been playing against right-handed pitching at first base, but he's injured right now. And Mike Sweeney was just acquired from the Mariners, a right-handed hitter, a veteran, who's also been playing over there a little bit. 1 ball and 2 strikes down to Dobbs. They're hoping that Howard might be able to be back as early as Tuesday, although they're not so sure. They feel very strongly that Chase Utley will be back by Tuesday. Howard is eligible to come off the disabled list on Tuesday, and he's been pointing toward that. He's been taking batting practice with the ball club and working out.
Well, when you take 2 guys out of your lineup like Utley and Howard, it's their presence also, not just the statistical numbers they put up year in and year out, but their presence forces you to make extra pitches, and you have to choose to pitch around them, and if you do so, you put men on base, which gives Worth and others a chance to drive runs in.
Howard is one of the greatest power hitters and RBI men in the game.
Well, Carlos Ruiz has had a lot of big hits for the Phillies during his time with the Phillies, and he has really become kind of the leader of this infield. We know Jimmy Rollins has been a guy that's been a leader for a long period of time. Well, I think Carlos Ruiz has stepped up, and as most people are called, they say he is kind of the heartbeat of the heart and soul of the Phillies.
He's hitting .294 for the year, and even better than that here lately. There is Castillo throwing a wet baseball in plenty of time. Worth got the scoring position but was stranded there. No score. Last of the second coming up. And Chris Carter will bat. Phillies nothing, Mets nothing as we go to the Mets half of the second inning here at Citi Field in New York. Coverage of Major League Baseball on ESPN will continue Wednesday with a doubleheader. First at 7 Eastern, Buster Posey and the Giants take on the Phillies. Right now, with the Cardinals, they're right there all bunched up at the top of the wild card race. Then at 10 Eastern on Wednesday, a pair of National League West rivals head-to-head, the Colorado Rockies and the Dodgers, both trying to project themselves back into the race. Wednesday Night Baseball on ESPN, also available on ESPN3.com. Now the Mets in the last of the second, and Chris Carter will lead off. There's a very highly touted young player, Chris Carter, with the Athletics, who just was brought to the big leagues a few days ago. This is not the same Chris Carter, although he had an excellent spring. This Chris Carter, 27 years old. He's from the San Francisco Bay Area originally. Used to be in the Boston Red Sox organization. And Kendrick is off the inside. 1 ball, 1 strike. He got into 9 games with the Red Sox in 2008 and 4 games last year. And he'd been in several other organizations along the way. Mets traded for him after last season. In too tight from Kendrick. The count is 2-1. This year, Carter has been in 60 games with the Mets, but only 95 at bats. He's got 2 homers, 14 batted in. And he's been used most of the time as a pinch hitter. More than a third of his at bats have been as a pinch hitter. Base hit to left field. Now, let's go to the studio. Here's Steve Berthiaume with the Sports Center right now.
That's unusual, taking someone out of the game when they still have a no-hitter. I've seen it done a few times, though.
Well, earlier this year, Edwin Jackson, then with Arizona, had a no-hitter. They really had a series of debates as to whether to remove him or not. They eventually left him in there, and he threw 149 pitches and got the no-hitter. Central Division, the Twins now by 3 over the White Sox. White Sox have cooled off just a little bit now. The White Sox today got into a slugfest with the Detroit Tigers and eventually lost it 13-8. The Twins, meanwhile, who've had a lot of injury problems of their own, especially to key personnel like Justin Morneau, their great RBI man, slugging first baseman, as Josh Thole, rookie catcher, with a count of 1-2 now. But we'll be in Minnesota at that beautiful new ballpark, the home of the Twins in downtown Minneapolis. Twins and the Angels at 8 Eastern, 7 Central next Sunday night. Joe Mauer, and Mauer is hot right now. 1-2 the count. Very high to Thole. Thole is only 23. So the 13th round draft choice in the 2005 player draft. Thole, a left-handed hitter all the way. And in 72 at bats is hitting .319. 1 home run. And off the inside. Full count now. 3-2.
Well, this is a tough decision for Jerry Manuel. Do you send Carter on the wet turf?
I'm sending him.
Well,
Kendrick's not a strikeout pitcher.
Yeah, but they need to find a way to score some runs and be consistent with it. So
you'd like to see him go?
Yes, I would, but I'm not the manager. We'll see.
Yeah, he's going. And a pop foul that will go out of play.
You know, very rarely do I hold them. And I think they should go most of the time. But I think that's the problem. Mets' last 4 wins have all been by a shutout. So you don't want your pitchers to have to think they're going to have to pitch a shutout every time they go out there just to win a ball game. You know, they lead with 18 shutouts. So you want to try and manufacture runs early if you can. The Mets have to find a way to have a more consistent offense, or they're not going to be a factor in the race.
Carter runs to third. Looking at second was Polanco, but he decided his only play was to first. He gets Thole. So perhaps a double play averted there by starting Chris Carter. Now he's in scoring position.
Well, take a look at these numbers for the Mets since the All-Star break. Runs per game, they're last, average with runners in scoring position, on-base percentage, slugging percentage, and they've won 10 and lost 18 during that stretch. You can't win a lot of ball games right there. without scoring some runs, even though their starting pitching especially, has been excellent since the All-Star break.
Here's Luis Castillo, the veteran. 240 average in 200 at-bats. No homers, 15 batted in. And ball one. Castillo lately was told by Jerry Manuel that his playing time was going to be reduced. They brought up one of their top prospects out of the minor leagues, Ruben Tejada. And wanted to get a good look at him. But Tejada has not hit since being recalled for the minors. For the year, hitting only 180 and 122 at bats. And he made a very big error here last night. So tonight in the rubber match of the series, Manuel goes back to the veteran, Luis Castillo. Kyle Kendrick, right-hander, and lefties have been hitting him much more effectively than righties this year. So 7 left-handed hitters in the Mets batting order, including the switch hitting Castillo. Left-handed hitters are hitting .330 against Kyle Kendrick. And the right-hander's hitting only .228 against him. So he's among the toughest in the National League against right-handed hitters.
Yeah, but one right-hander that's not in there, Jeff Francoeur, hits him well. He is hitting .409 against Kendrick. But he is no longer an everyday player for the Mets.
Now, you've got first base open here. 3-1 the count. Pelfrey, the pitcher, is up next. So he doesn't want to make a mistake with Castillo. But it could be dangerous to just go ahead and walk him anyway, because Pelfrey could bunt those runners up. And Jose Reyes is pretty dangerous at the top of the order.
Well, Reyes has been swinging the bat well.
That's in there. 3-2. It looked like Castillo just taking all the way there.
And that's something that if you're Jerry Manuel, you would not like to see him do. I mean, the pitcher on deck, you kind of expand your strike zone. You do not narrow it.
3-2 the count. There's Reyes in the hole. And he broke his bat. And that pitch was ball 4. So he did expand right there, but he actually got I think a much more hittable pitch the pitch before. 3-2 the count.
Well, it's tough to hit 8th in a lineup, because you do not know if they're going to give you a 3-1 fastball. You do not know exactly how they're going to try to pitch you. And he did give him a 3-1 fastball and then another 3-2, but the 3-2 pitch, as you mentioned, was a lot tougher to handle.
So Castillo with a new bat. Rain is much lighter than it had been now. And just in time, Valdez made the play, and Carter moves to third base with 2 down, and here comes Mike Pelfrey. So it's only dangerous. I mean, I'm sure there's a temptation to pitch around that guy with a 1 out and the pitcher up next, but that could still be a couple of runs if the pitcher gets the bunt down, and a guy like Reyes with 2 men in scoring position comes up.
And remember, just because he bunts the ball doesn't mean you're going to get him out either. I mean, you have to make a play, and again, the conditions could cause you to make a mistake.
So here's Pelfrey, and Kendrick is off the inside. Pelfrey has 5 hits in 40 at bats, a 125 average. So even for a pitcher, that's not that good. 5 hits, 40 at bats.
Well, he would prefer to tell you he has 2 RBIs.
So 2 of them, not just 1, but 2. But he's got an advantage on the count now, 2-0. That is at the knees, a sinker. It's 2-1. He's been featuring that fastball, batter to batter, pitch to pitch throughout this inning. Kyle Kendrick. No score in the game in the second. The Mets with a runner at third for the 2nd inning in a row. Carter, the runner at third. 3-1 to Pelfrey. It's showing maybe a little bit too much. He's been concentrating on those 2 RBIs, Joe. Showing him a little bit too much respect with Jose Reyes. Coming up next, an actual hitter. At the knees, strike 2. I have a feeling what Pelfrey's idea was there. I don't think he was swinging, no matter where that pitch was. 3-2 now. Took a swing there, did not get it. So the Mets with 4 hits in the first 2 innings, but no runs. On to the 3rd inning, and the grounds crew center stage again. Light rain falling, much lighter than it had been, and the grounds crew is working on the field again with the bags of turfus, the water absorbent sand-like material, trying to dry off the infield dirt, keep the field playable. This past Wednesday was not a day or night to remember for the Mets, and especially for their closer, Francisco Rodriguez. He was placed on the restricted list without pay for 2 days. On Thursday, a day after being arrested and charged with third-degree assault on his significant other or girlfriend or partner's father. He was arraigned after spending the night at the Citi Field holding facility. He served as we said, a 2-game suspension, forfeited his salary for Thursday and Friday. Rodriguez addressed the media yesterday.
Well, first of all, I'm extremely sorry and want to apologize to the Fred Whipple, Jeff Whipple, and Mr. Katz for the incident happening Wednesday night. I want to apologize also to the Mets fans, to my teammates. I want to apologize, of course, to the front office for to the embarrassing moment that I caused. And I'm looking forward, to be a better person. Right now, the plan is I'm going to be going to anger management program, and I cannot speak no further, about the legal stuff that we're going through right now.
The ball dribbled up the third base side by Valdez, and David Wright. Beautiful play. Valdez is retired, and there is one away.
Well, John, the one thing with K-Rod or Francisco is that his teammates, are gathering around him and giving him another chance. It was said that he apologized to his teammates in the press conference, but people were wondering, did he apologize to his teammates in a meeting? And at the time, he had not, but he said he was going to apologize to each one of them individually. And a lot of people think he should have done it in front of the whole team, but some people can't speak from their heart in front of a big group like that, so we could see how nervous he was trying to get through the press conference. So if he apologizes to them individually,
That's a base hit to right. Maybe a base hit. That's all. No, not a base hit. The right fielder, Pagan, throws out Kyle Kendrick at first base. He was playing very shallow. And that is a very rare ground out to the right fielder, to the first baseman for the putout.
Well, he hit the ball sharply, and as you mentioned, Pagan was playing in shallow. Watch, it's a hard line drive. This is not just a little pitcher flipping it over there. Gets it on one hop, has plenty of time. And he was out by plenty of, and he hustled down the line. It was just hit too hard, and he was playing too shallow. And it wasn't even a close play at first base. A lot of times it is close, but this one's not even close. They had him played perfectly.
About the spot where the second baseman would play if David Ortiz were batting, or Ryan Howard. They know all about that one. That one happens to them all the time.
Well, John, I went into the locker room today, and I spoke to K-Rod, and he was sitting at his locker, very quiet, but, and he seemed like he was okay, and his teammates were talking to him. So, it's something that they're going to have to move on from as a group. He's going to have to straighten out his own legal problems in his life, but I think he's going to get a lot of support from his teammates.
1-2 to Jimmy Rollins, the leadoff man. Rodriguez was arraigned on the misdemeanor charge Thursday afternoon, then released on his own recognizance. He did not enter a plea. Is due back in court September the 14th. 1-2 the count. And a flare into left center in front of Carter, the left fielder. And Jimmy Rollins gets a 2-strike hit against Mike Pelfrey. Second hit of the game for the Phillies.
Now, when you look at the Phillies, you think, well, they get Howard and Utley back, everything will be okay. But that's not necessarily so. They still have problems. Who's going to be their fourth and fifth starter? They have problems in the bullpen on occasion. And when you look at Rollins, he's hitting .210 left-handed, and Victorino is hitting .228. And these are the guys that have to set the table, and they're usually the stars of this team, and they're not performing up to their capabilities right now. So until that happens, they're still going to have some problems.
Rollins going. He steals it ahead of the throw by Josh Tolley. And Rollins has not been thrown out this year on a steal attempt. He's now 11 for 11.
And let's take a look. Here's Jimmy Rollins' season breakdown. He's been on the disabled list twice, and he's been on the disabled list a lot the last couple of years. And obviously that has affected his play.
He got off to a fast start, but only played 12 games. And there's a strike to Victorino. 1 ball, 1 strike. So Rollins gets himself in a scoring position now. And Victorino will try and knock him in. Victorino with 53 RBIs this year. Victorino is hitting .313 with runners in scoring position. Much higher than his overall average. And the count is 2-1.
But they don't look at him as the RBI man. I mean, at the beginning of the season, he took over for Rollins when Rollins was out, and he was driving in runs, hitting the ball out of the ballpark. But they need he and Rollins to set the table for the Chase Utleys when he gets back. And, of course, Ryan Howard and Ibanez and Worth. They're a better team when that happens.
Rollins is running. Tolley with a wide throw. Rollins steals another one. And with 2 down, he's got to make it if he's going to risk it in that scenario.
And with it, the conditions out here, I think it's a good play. It's very difficult to steal third with a left-handed hitter up because you see the catcher has a clear throw, step right away and throw it, but Rollins had such a good jump that they didn't have a chance to get him at third.
So now runner at third, 2 down. 2-2 to Victorino. And a foul. By the way, going back to last year, Rollins has a pretty good consecutive steal streak going. 27 in a row now. For a long time, that's the longest active streak in Major League Baseball. For a long time, his first base coach, Davey Lopes, had the record for consecutive steals, and Lopes did it all in one season. I think it was a 40-plus. That is foul. So the battle continues between Pelfrey And Victorino with Rollins at third. Rollins singled with 2 down and nobody on. Stole second, then stole third. And he is the man that Mets fans love to hate. There's Davey Lopes. Jimmy Rollins, the man who just came right out a couple of years ago and said the Phillies were better than the Mets and they were going to beat them. And they did. They beat everybody. They won the World Series that year.
And
John, too high, 3-2.
That also points out one of the differences between these two teams. The Phillies play with a swagger. They walk with a swagger. The Mets are a little more mild-mannered and quiet. And the Phillies, when they walk on the field, they expect to win. They walk on the field and expect you to think of them as winners.
3-2 the count. That is a fair ball. And the Phillies have gone ahead. Victorino keeps on going as Rollins has scored. And it's a stand-up double for Victorino. 1-0 Phils.
And there's evidence of his hitting with runners in scoring position. Even though he struggles from the left side at 228, he hits much better with runners in scoring position. And we'll get a good look at this ball. You can see it is clearly fair. It's inside the bag and then hooks foul.
So if you were the umpire, you wouldn't need a replay on that one.
No, you wouldn't need a replay.
Here is Placido Polanco. And another runner in scoring position, a very fast one. Ball 1 the count to Polanco. I'm John Miller with Joe Morgan, Oral Hershiser. And off this week. We're in the third inning at Citi Field. It's been a wet night. The game started in a light rain. The infield itself got very wet. They've several times gone out with the turfus, the water absorbent sand-like material, to try and make the infield more playable. There's a very light rain still falling, but much lighter than what we had earlier. More like a sprinkle. A sprinkle? Drizzle? 2-0 the count.
When I talked to Charlie Manuel today, he said, look, we've had some luck, Joe, to be able to stay in this race. He says, but the real key is that they continue to play hard every day. He said, my guys have played hard. And when he's mentioned luck, he talked about the Dodger game the other day where a ball went through the legs of Casey Blake, added to their victory. Last night, a ball went through the legs of David Wright and helped them to a victory.
Oh, that hit. Polanco, who has a bad left elbow anyway. He says that elbow has given him a lot of trouble, and he says it's maybe about 90% effective. One of the Phillies trainers comes out, Charlie Manuel. The manager goes out. He's got a protective cover over that left elbow, as you can see. Let's listen here.
It looked like it hit him on the hand. I don't think it got him on the elbow. I think it got him on the hand. Yes. And when the hand the ball pins your hand to the bat, that's where the pain comes in.
So Polanco says he's okay to continue, at least for now. He's at first, Victorino over at second, and now Raul Ibanez, who in the absence of Utley and Howard became the Phillies' top RBI man. He had a hot bat. In fact, since the All-Star break, has hit 340. Tonight, he struck out his first time. Pelfrey to the plate. A strike.
And as hot as he has been, he's still 0 for his last 14.
Through July the 1st, he was having one of his worst seasons, but since then, this is going back to a time before the All-Star break, 328 with 5 more home runs. So a spot now where he can lengthen that lead. It's already 1-0 Phillies here in the third. And a foul out of play. Now, a run by the third inning for the Phillies here, and that is a major event. They got shut out the first 4 times they played here this year. They finally scored a run in last night's game in the third inning. So they had gone 38 consecutive innings without a run at Citi Field. Mets had also shut them out in a game in Philly earlier in the season. So the Mets have shut out the Phillies 5 times in 11 previous games, but 4 of the previous 5 games in this park. 1-0, the Phils lead. And the splitter runs down and away, or change up. 1 ball and 2 strikes.
Before that pitch, Castillo came in and talked to Pelfrey because he was telling him to make sure he holds Victorino close at second base because he almost took off the pitch before. As we saw Jimmy Rollins steal third. David Wright is a little wide of the bag, which makes it difficult to throw to third on the steal.
2-2 now to Ibanez. Victorino, 21 steals, only been thrown out 3 times.
The catcher has to try to time his throw to arrive there when Wright gets there. And he's throwing not to a target, he's throwing over the base, which makes it more difficult.
And a full count with Jason Worth on deck. That's 27 pitches in this inning thrown by Pelfrey, 51 in the game already. And he only threw 7 in the first inning. He's had 2 heavy pitch counts in the last 2 innings. So now Victorino from second, Polanco from first, ready to go. They run right to the shortstop, Reyes, in time. Just the one, and it all happened after 2 were down. Jimmy Rollins, a single, 2 steals, scored on Victorino's double. 1-0 Phillies. Preseason continues on ESPN tomorrow night as Eli Manning and the Giants take on Mark Sanchez and the Jets. Jets and Giants in the brand new Meadowlands Stadium. Monday Night Football on ESPN tomorrow night at 8 Eastern. Coverage begins at 7 Eastern with Monday Night Countdown. There's a little sneak preview of the new venue. Actually, they played soccer over there. The new Meadowlands Stadium will be hosting its first football game. Giants and Jets. Over 82,000 seats. Second largest NFL stadium behind FedEx Field outside of Washington, D.C. And it will be the host of the Super Bowl come February of 2014. Top of the order for the Mets. And the rain is, after being just sort of a sprinkle there for a while, getting a little bit heavier. Jose Reyes, who singled his first time and then was thrown out trying to steal. Both the Giants and Jets will play at the new Meadowlands Stadium, the largest privately financed stadium in United States history, $1.7 billion. It's almost like you have to speak like Carl Sagan to talk about that. $1.7 billion. 1-1 the count to Jose Reyes. Angel Pagan and David Wright will follow against Kyle Kendrick. That ball is deep. If it's fair, it's gone. Off the foul pole. Home run, Jose Reyes to tie the game.
Now we mentioned that Jose had been swinging the bat well, and that's a great example there. And most of the times I've seen him hit home runs, it's on a pitch down and in from the left side. Well, let's take a look. Target's outside, pitches down and in, and he whips through it. Most left-handed hitters hit that ball down and in very well, and Jose Reyes is a good example.
Ball one, a breaking ball to Angel Pagan. So Reyes with his 8th home run of the year. He's also got 7 triples, 23 doubles. Tries that backdoor slider, misses. 2-0 the count to Pagan, who grounded out to short his first time. Mets have shown more power this year, 90 home runs. They're almost up to their final home run total of last year. And the center field hit well. Victorino, having to turn back around to his right, makes the catch out near the warning track.
Wrong place to hit it here. You better find a gap if you hit it in the air from left center to right center.
408 to straightaway center. Probably deeper than that, a little bit to the left of that, where the left field wall meets the center field wall. 415 to very deep right center.
And the ball doesn't carry well in that area.
The Mets, 90 home runs so far for the season. And in this park, they've hit 43. This is their 58th home game. David Wright, Polanco, and Wright is now 1 for 2. He hit a single his first time. So 2 gone, and Carlos Beltran, the cleanup hitter, will come up. 1-1 the score. Reyes telling him how he did it. Angel Pagan there chatting with him. Pagan said, hey, I hit mine way better than you hit yours. And he might have. He hit his maybe close to 400 feet into the glove of the center fielder. Beltran hit a single his first time. 2-0 the count. Kyle Kendrick on the mound for the Phillies. Kendrick, who's struggled at times with a 4.6 earned run average. Most often he's either just horrible or he pitches very well. He's had very few of those in-between games where you say he was just mediocre. Not terrible, but not real good either. He had a handful of those, but
well, he's given up 2 runs or less in 10 of his 22 starts, and 5 runs or more, hit 8 of the 22. So he is definitely a hit and miss kind of guy. But the key is that he throws strikes, and that will normally keep you in the ball game.
1-1 the score. Reyes home run tying it. Oh. I want a replay on that one.
You know, I noticed when the first inning when Beltran, grounded the ball into right field, he just kind of rolled over with his top hand, which told me he wasn't using his lower body very well. See, there it is again. That's just the upper body swing.
Into the left field corner and foul.
And that tells you that his knee is still bothering, whether it's the brace. And you can see he's kind of limping with it going back. But the brace kind of hinders you from rolling over or turning sometimes. And that's what Jerry Manuel was talking about. Now watch his upper body. You'll see that it functions fine, but his lower body, there's really no drive there. See, there's just nothing but upper body. No drive from his legs. All upper body, and that's why he's not hitting for any power, and he's not going to as long as he has that type of swing.
He chases one out of the strike zone there for strike 3. The inning is over. But Jose Reyes slams one off the right field foul pole. This game is tied on that home run. Jason Worth coming up for the Phillies. Baseball presented by Taco Bell. A rainy night at Citi Field here in Flushing Meadows, Queens, New York. John Miller, Joe Morgan, our 21st season of Sunday Night Baseball every Sunday, 8 Eastern. And the rain is falling, and it has been falling since before this game started. Here's Jason Worth against Mike Pelfrey, and the slider is in the dirt. The ball one. Worth hit a single his first time.
But John, the infield looks a lot better now. So that material, that their absorbent material they're putting on it, has done its job. You don't see puddles sitting around out there. So it looks a lot better.
That's a foul out of play off the right field line. 1 ball, 1 strike to the powerful Jason Worth, who could be a free agent after this season. There's been a lot of talk during the season as to whether the Phillies might have looked to trade him for other needs as the season was going along. Slider in the dirt outside, but they ended up keeping him. And they still went out and acquired the former Houston Astros ace, Roy Oswalt. Oswalt got his first win for the Phillies just earlier this week. And that one hits Jason Worth.
John, let's take a look at Diamond Tracks on that steal in the first inning by Jose Reyes. I said he was safe. We're going to take a look at Diamond Tracks and the speed here, and you'll see that he's going to reach second base quicker than the throw gets there. So that tells me that he was safe. 3.37 seconds, and the ball got there. Total time 3.45. So he was definitely in there. I wonder if they're going to use Diamond Tracks if they use instant replay. That will help them get it right.
So he, from the moment he broke and that was
pitch.
The time for the pitch started at the same moment that he broke?
Yeah, he broke on the pitch, and it took the ball 3.45 seconds to get to second base. Took him 3.3 seconds to get to second base.
Because
so I thought of a second.
I thought the other one was how quickly from the pitcher to the catcher to second base.
Correct.
From the moment the pitcher breaks from his stretch.
Well, they both broke at the same time.
Well, they roughly the same time, but it's 2 different times, right? I need these little details, Joe.
Well, it took him, he got there quicker than the pitcher's delivery to the plate and the catcher's throw.
So if you do that, you're usually going to get a steal.
You're going to be safe.
Although he was called out.
And remember, a lot of times it depends on how far the base runner is running, how big a lead he has at first base.
Jason Worth, 8 steals for the year. Off the glove of Ike Davis. He recovers and gets Greg Dobbs as Worth goes to second. He might have had a chance for a double play. He'd been able to pick that ball cleanly.
I think if you're Mike Pelfrey, you're just happy to get an out because that ball was smoked. This ball is smoked down on Davis, and all he can do is try to get some leather on it, which he did, and he's able to come up with. This ball is hit hard. He jumps off the back, and all of a sudden the ball is there off of that wet turf, and he gets a glove on it, but he can't handle it, but he's able to retire Dobbs at first base, and that gets you one out.
So Dobbs gets credit for a productive out, moving the runner into scoring position. And he really clobbered the ball. Not much more a hitter can do than just clobber the ball in a given at bat. Here's Carlos Ruiz. Ruiz grounded out to second his first time. He drove in the winning runs in the spectacular Phillies comeback victory over the Dodgers on Thursday in Philadelphia. Phillies were down 9-2 into the 8th inning of that game. They got 4 runs in the 8th and 4 in the 9th to win it.
But just before his double off the left center field wall, there was an error by Casey Blake. The ball went through his legs, which allowed them to score a couple of runs, and that's what happened last night with David Wright. The ball went through his legs, and they scored a couple of runs in a 4-0 victory behind Doc Holliday.
Those were the last 2 runs in that 4-0 win last night. 2-0 the count. Worth at second. Right center field. Beltran tagging at second is Worth. Beltran makes the catch. Will throw back towards second as Worth easily makes it to third.
John, I'm going to show you where that 8/100th of a second comes in. We're going to show you that on the diamond track. Now watch. Rollins has the ball in his hand. Now as he goes by, he catches it. Now he has to go over and make the tag. You see his hand hits the bag. Now he hits his arm, and there's where you come up with that 8/100th of a second difference. So if the throw would have been right over the bag, he would have been out. But it does take time. The ball travels faster than any tag. That's the main thing.
Here is Wilson Valdez. And nice pickup, and from his knees, Castillo throws out Valdez, and that saves a run. So the old guy, Luis Castillo, still with a few moves up his sleeve. 1-1 as we go to the last of the 4th, and in 60 seconds we'll visit with Phillies pitching coach Rich Doobie from the Philadelphia dugout. We were unable to visit with Rich, but Rich, many thanks.
Well, I wanted to know what effect he thought the weather was having on his pitcher, and pitching under those conditions with the ground being a little wet and soft, does it really affect the pitchers? You know, even though they keep that mound dry because they do have a tarp over it before the game. They had a tarp over it before the game while it was raining. A lot of times they get a lot of mud in their cleats and it affects their delivery.
Doobie has thrown, or rather, Doobie's charge, Kyle Kendrick, 25-year-old right-handed, thrown 57 pitches in the first 3 innings, so he's been a busy man. The Mets only had the 1 run against him. The grounds crew on the infield with the big rakes. They put a little more of that Turfus, the diamond drying agent, on the infield dirt, and they've done that several times between innings in this game.
John, we were talking earlier about how good a manager Charlie Manuel is. I mean, he has a 600 winning percentage after the All-Star break during his career, which is the best in the National League. And Charlie, to me, is just one of the most underrated guys ever. He put this team together, and he keeps them together. And I think he's the reason that they have been able to play well despite all the injuries.
Well, here is Ike Davis, the son of a former major leaguer, Charlie Manuel. And this is, you talk about that winning percentage. That's as the manager of the Phillies. He also managed the Cleveland Indians for several seasons. They've won consecutive National League pennants. If they do it again this year, they make it 3 in a row, get to the World Series. That'll be something that has not happened in the National League for, what, more 60 years or so. 0-2 the count to Ike Davis.
And when you talk to him, you can understand how players and why players like to play for him. He is definitely a player's manager because he was a player, and he understands players very well.
0-2 to Ike Davis. Flied out to shallow center his first time. Strike 3 called on the inside corner. Kendrick gets him for his 3rd strikeout.
I've been watching Davis a lot. It looks like he's gotten a little closer to the plate, and he has been called out on that pitch a few times lately. Looks like he's crowding the plate, and all of us, because they were probably pitching him away earlier, now all of a sudden they're busting him in with 2 strikes, and he's not ready. Watch how close he is to the plate, and this is for a guy that is pretty tall. We'll take a look.
First pitch is inside to Chris Carter.
Now take a look at how close he is to the plate, and that ball right on the inside corner, and he's backing off.
Although he seemed to know that that pitch was a strike, he did not linger to argue with Ron Culpa. Carter in the center field, but right there is Victorino. Carter, who singled his first time, is now 1 for 2. 1-1 the score here in the 4th. MLB.TV, baseball everywhere. Get over 100 live out-of-market games per week in HD quality where available on your computer. Visit MLB.TV for details. By the way, the last time a National League team went to 3 straight World Series was during World War II, the St. Louis Cardinals, 1942, 43, and 44. 66 years since they went to their 3rd one in succession. That changeup too high to Josh Thole. Thole grounded to 3rd his first time. 1-1 in the 4th. 2 down, bases empty. And a ball down and in. 2-0 the count. The Phillies, if they make it all the way to the World Series, and it's certainly premature right now, they're hoping to win tonight, which would basically tie them for the wild card lead. So they're right there. Into center. Victorino in a couple of steps. And a quick, quiet inning. A perfect inning for Kendrick. Only 8 pitches. And we're hoping to visit with Jerry Manuel in 60 seconds from the Mets dugout as we head to the 5th inning in a 1-1 tie. Back with Jerry Manuel in 60. the fifth inning. I'm John Miller with Joe Morgan, and we're very pleased now to be joined by the manager of the New York Mets, Jerry Manuel. Jerry, thank you.
All right, how you doing? How you guys doing, John?
Good, Jerry.
Good.
Jerry, you were waiting for all your guys to get healthy, getting
Right.
Beltran back. How is that knee brace affecting his swing?
Well, I think it has some effect on it because the fact he doesn't have the flexibility in that knee and to kind of hit up against that side. But I think he's making some nice adjustments with it, and hopefully he'll get comfortable with it and start to be the productive guy that we know he is.
Well, all of a sudden, Mike Pelfrey is back on the road. Why?
Well, I think what has happened with Mike is that he hit a little bump in the road and was beginning to kind of guide his off-speed pitches. Arm was slowing down a bit, didn't have any arm speed with his off-speed pitches. Therefore, they became very recognizable, and people were laying off of him and wasn't getting any swings and misses outside the zone. So he started speeding that up a little bit and trying to have get some arm speed back with those pitches, and he's performed pretty well.
Hey, when you went out in the first inning after Reyes got thrown out, what did you say to the umpire?
Well, I asked him about the field, and I told him, I said, now, Reyes is usually safe on these things. What did you think? He said, I thought he got him before he got to the bag. So I said, okay, I'll give you this one.
All right. Is the field okay?
Yeah, it's okay.
All right. Jerry, we'll let you get back to work. Thank
All right,
you.
guys. Thanks, guys.
Many thanks to Jerry Manuel, manager of the New York Mets. Jose Reyes got a single leading off the first inning for the Mets and then was called out at second on a stolen base attempt. He didn't think he was out, Jerry Manuel. And that was interesting. He not only went out to ask him about the call, and there's a protocol there, because if you start arguing about it, you can be thrown out. I think it's almost mandatory to be ejected if you argue with the umpire about getting the call right. But he also asked him about the field and what kind of shape he thought the field was in. So, yeah, I think the field is in pretty good shape right now. Reyes throws out Kendrick to start the fifth inning.
Wait a minute, let's back up there. You saying you can't argue about whether he was out or safe? I think you're talking about pitches.
But you can't go out and say you got that call wrong. You were absolutely incorrect.
You can't? Well, why do they go out there? That's why they go out there.
Well, you have to approach it a certain way.
Oh, okay. Well, all right. Well,
as he said he went out and he said, "Are you sure about that call?" Because usually he's safe on those plays.
Well, yes, but you can argue that call at second base. You may not be able to argue pitches, balls, and strikes, but you can definitely argue whether a guy beat a play or not.
So you can go out and just tell him.
Oh, yeah, you can go out and say you missed it.
You were absolutely wrong.
Yeah, you just go out and say you missed it. And I think that I'm sure Jerry did in some form tell him that he missed that play.
Well, he said he just asked him, "Are you sure about it?"
Well, he was on TV.
So he was being very politic.
Yes,
okay.
Yeah. He wanted to make sure that he was politically correct, and he didn't want to get on the umpires.
One ball, one strike to Jimmy Rollins as the catcher, Tolle, is out. Here's the axis play again, John. And you see that Jimmy has the ball in his hand, and he has his hand on the bag. Watch his hand goes to the bag. Now Jimmy hits him on his left arm. His right hand was already on the bag. But it wasn't obvious. It wasn't like he blew the call totally, but I do think he was safe. And Jose, when he went back out between innings, he went over and talked to the umpire, and he said, I'm sure he was doing it politely too, John. Reyes, and he throws out Jimmy Rollins. Rollins, who helped produce the Phillies' only run with a 2-out single to the third and 2 steals. Let's go to the studio. Here's Steve Berthiaume with the Sports Center right now. All right, thanks, Steve. Shane Victorino, the hitter now. 1 ball and no strikes. Victorino's the man who drove in Rollins after Rollins stole his way in all the way to third base in the third inning. Victorino hit a double. It is 1-1. Jose Reyes with a home run for the Mets in the third to tie the game. Rollins now 1 for 3 in this one. Only 3 hits for the Phillies against Pelfrey. Pelfrey has gotten 12 ground ball outs. There have been 14 men retired by Pelfrey, and 12 have grounded out. There have been, although one of those ground ball outs was a one-hopper to the right fielder who threw out Kyle Kendrick at first base. Single there for Victorino, and he is 2 for 3. The Braves, with their lopsided win over the Dodgers today, are 2.5 games ahead of the Phillies in the East right now. And the Reds swept the 3-game series after they got swept themselves by the Cardinals earlier in the week, and they lead the Central Division by 1 game. The Padres lead the West by 3.5 games over the Giants. They took 2 out of 3 from the Giants this weekend in San Francisco. The Giants have not been able to beat the Padres. They are 2-9 against the Pods. Giants still have a half-game lead in the wild card over the Phillies and the Cardinals. Phillies and Cardinals at the moment identical records. And Colorado lurking. The Rockies, who have a lot of talent, they have a great #1 pitcher, Ubaldo Jimenez, who is 17-3 this year. Polanco, and that's a strike. Polanco has grounded out to third and been hit by a pitch. Polanco, who may have to undergo elbow surgery on that left elbow. He was placed on the disabled list earlier this year, but he is having an excellent season. 3rd in the league in batting average as Victorino, and this is a steal situation. Polanco's not a power hitter.
Well, you know me, I think every situation is a steal situation for guys that can steal bases.
And back to the bag again, Victorino. And he's back yet again. 4 pickoff throws made now by Pelfrey with Victorino at first.
And we've talked about this before. They have a guy like Davey Lopes helping them to read pitchers' motions. And Davey Lopes, one of the best base stealers in the history of the game, and he's able to help them and pick out things for them to look for. It gives them a good jump. There's the watch. The watch is how they use to time guys to see if they're going to send. I think that's for guys who are not necessarily base stealers, but guys who have a chance of stealing a base. You guys like Rollins and Victorino, they're going to try to go no matter what the clock says.
He took a quick start and then abruptly stopped that time, did Victorino.
When the guy's fast to the plate and they're fastest on the throw to second base, what you do is have to get a bigger lead at first base and make up the difference there. You don't just stop running because a guy has a good move and the catcher has a quick release. You just have to make it up another way.
Davey Lopes took the young Shane Victorino under his wing. There goes Victorino. The ball is fouled by Polanco. And it's 2-2 now.
Unfortunately, the ball was fouled because Victorino had an excellent jump there. And here are the rankings as far as steals with Davey Lopes being there, and they have the highest percentage in the National League history in 2007 when they ranked second as far as numbers, but they had a better percentage of success than anyone else.
There he goes. Totally slow, not nearly in time.
It doesn't matter how quick Pelfrey is, and he is quick to the plate. If you know what you're doing at first base, you just get a bigger lead and timing better. Sometimes you have to just anticipate when he's going to move and get a good jump. And he had 2 good jumps in a row. The first one was fouled, and you see he's running long before that ball gets halfway to the plate. He's almost halfway by the time the catcher comes up and releases the ball, and is not even close at second base.
So not a great pitch on which to throw if you're Josh Thole.
Breaking ball down and away.
So now base hit by Polanco could mean a run. It's a 1-1 game in the 5th inning. Victorino's going again, and Polanco hits it foul.
Sometimes you steal third base with 2 outs simply because you want to mess with the pitcher's mind. Put another thought in his mind that you might steal, and that may allow him to make a mistake going to the plate. Although we've talked many times about there are at least 9 different ways you can score from third with 2 outs that you can't score from second.
3-2 the count. Right up the middle, base hit into center field. Victorino heading home. Beltran with not much on that throw, cut off by Ike Davis, and the Phillies have a 2-1 lead. And their speed at the top of the order has been critical in each of their runs.
And that's why you steal a base. You get yourself in the scoring position where you can score on a single. And with 2 outs, they execute it perfectly.
So Victorino, who knocked in the first run with a 2-out double, scores this run after getting a single with 2 down. The Phillies almost textbook at the top of the order with the fast guys making things happen. And Pelfrey's been pitching real well as Ibanez tops it foul on a slider. Ibanez is struck out and grounded out to short.
And we failed to mention, at least I did, that Polanco was 3rd in the National League in hitting at the beginning of his day. He was trailing Joey Votto and Carlos Gonzalez. Gonzalez of the Rockies and Joey Votto of the Cincinnati Reds.
He could, even with his injury, and he probably needs elbow surgery when the season's over. Right now, he's got a shot to win the batting title in the National League. The Phillies have not had a player win a batting title since Hall of Famer Richie Ashburn all the way back in 1958. And it's 2-1. But going back to the speed, 2 down, nobody on in the 3rd inning when Rollins got a single. He stole second, then he stole third, and Victorino knocked him in. Victorino here in the 5th inning with 2 down and nobody on, a single, stole second, and Polanco knocked him in. Here's Victorino. He's got a lot of the Citi Field infield all over his uniform now on a wet night.
But what happens when runners start to stealing bases, running around, pitchers start to worry a little bit about them, and they're more likely to make a mistake and get a ball in the middle of the plate for the hitter. And that may not be what happened with Polanco, but the fact that Victorino was trying to steal third did bother him.
Castillo, the second baseman. And that's all for Ibanez and the Phillies. But Shane Victorino took a page out of the Jimmy Rollins playbook. Stole himself in a scoring position and scored. Phillies lead. In fact, the last 2 years running, the Phillies have won the National League title, and they are leading this game now with the Mets 2-1 as the 8th place hitter Luis Castillo takes ball one from Kyle Kendrick. Jimmy Rollins, the leadoff man, Shane Victorino, the number 2 man in the order, and those two have been stealing bases and getting themselves in scoring position. Wow. He moved way up on that bunt and easily beats it out.
Well, he moved up. The question is, was he out of the batter's box?
I thought maybe he was. Here comes Charlie Manuel. Charlie thinks so too.
Well, I think Charlie Manuel saw what we saw, and that is that he ran way up. He was in fair. He's going to be way up here in fair territory. See where he is? He's way in fair territory. When he drops that ball down, and you can clearly see that the batter's box is behind him. Now the question is, did Charlie ask him to get help? The only one that could help him a lot would be the third base umpire, who is looking right down that line.
Tom Hallion, the third base umpire, is also the crew chief. Pelfrey looking to bunt. Pelfrey has only 3 sacrifice bunts this year.
The one thing when you're bunting, as we saw Castillo do, that he wasn't trying to get such a head start, but he wanted to make sure that his bat was in fair territory, so when he drops it down, it's going to stay fair. And as a pitcher, you should be doing the same thing. You move up forward and put your bat in fair territory, so when you bunt it, it'll stay fair. See, he's reaching behind the plate, and his bat's in foul territory when he's trying to make contact.
And that could be a real weapon for a pitcher who is very adept at getting a bunt down. This is a runner at first and nobody out. The top of the order coming up. And a guy who is a pretty good RBI man, Jose Reyes, coming up next. You get 2 shots to try to bring him home. And diving safely back is Castillo. But Pelfrey obviously has not been very good at it.
Well, we're going to take a look at Castillo. We showed you where he was, he's out of the batter's box. See, where his foot is, it's out, both feet are out front of the batter's box. That means you're out of the batter's box when he made contact. He should have been called out.
I don't remember the last time I saw a guy that far out.
I remember Hank Aaron running up like that on Kurt Simmons to hit, and he hit it out of the ballpark, and they called him out. And you can see that, again, he gets his bat in fair territory. That's the key.
This is Dobbs throwing out Pelfrey, who gets it done. So now Castillo in scoring position, the possible tying run.
Well, let's take a look at Pelfrey. Does a great job of getting this bunt down. But what you're going to see that he reaches out, the ball chases him, but the bat's in fair territory, keeps the ball fair. See where the bat is? It's out front of the line, and he keeps it fair.
So Pelfrey has put a man in scoring position with the bunt, and here is Reyes, who has a single and a homer. Swiveling back and looking Castillo back to second. Kyle Kendrick. This is a spot where the Mets have not done well in the second half of the season, and especially not on this homestand. That is in for a called strike. Mets hitting only 187 as a team with runners in scoring position since the All-Star break, and are only hitting 094 on this homestand. They're 0 for 3 tonight. Line drive right to Rollins. Back to second is Castillo.
Well, good job by Castillo. He knew where Rollins was playing, and he didn't just take off on the line drive. Well, you look and see as a base runner where the shortstop's playing. You get back. Reyes is yelling at his bat, saying should have did a better job of finding a hole.
Well, he clobbered that ball. So 2 down, and here is Angel Pagan. Pagan has grounded to short and flied out deep to center. 2-1. The Phillies lead the Mets, so they're 0 for 4 now in those clutch at bats with a runner at second or third or both. And the changeup misses. 1 ball and no strike. They had a terrible sequence last night after Reyes led off an inning with a triple against Roy Halladay. Halladay got a ground out and 2 strikeouts, and the runner was stranded.
Well, you see, he's done very well, meaning Pagan, with runners in scoring position.
Third best in the National League. 372 average in situations like this. And a strike call to the outside. 1-1 to Pagan. Mets were, in the first half of the season, doing pretty well in situations like this with a runner in scoring position or runners. Still hitting .257 overall as a team in these clutch at bats, despite the second half slump. On the inside corner, sinker in there, strike 2.
And a good job there by Kendrick. The ball, he threw one sinker away, and he came back with the ball off the plate that works its way back on the inside corner. Excellent pitch there by Kendrick.
Crucial at bats here. Crucial pitches being thrown by Kendrick with a 1-run lead on a runner in scoring position. And Pagan helps him going out of the strike zone. Kendrick's 4th strikeout. And the runner is stranded. On to the 6th inning. Jason Worth comes up with the Phillies, who lead the Mets 2-1.
Sunday Night Baseball, presented by Taco Bell, is brought to you by One A Day Men's, the official multivitamin of MLB, specially formulated for men.
This is the big city. You have to move fast if you're going to make it here. There's a big swing and a foul by Jason Worth, leading it off in the 6th inning for the Phillies. Worth has singled and been hit by a pitch. He'll be followed by Greg Dobbs and then Carlos Ruiz. 2-1. The Phillies lead the Mets in the 6th inning. The rain, I think, has stopped completely now. So for most of the first 4 innings or so, We had rain falling here from the very beginning of the game. I think it's gone now. 2 runs, 5 hits for the Phils. 1 run, 6 hits for the Mets. Here's Dobbs on deck. Slider is in the dirt. The Phillies with a win would be again back to within 2 games of the Atlanta Braves in the Eastern Division. The Phillies, they're not talking about the wild card. And in the National League, most teams are not talking about the wild card except maybe the Mets or the Dodgers, the Rockies. That's a fair ball. Worth is heading for second, and the ball got through. He's going to head for third. Castillo will hold the relay. 3 bases there for Jason Worth. That ball disappeared in the right field corner out of our view, as did Angel Pagan, but somehow it skipped on by Pagan, and instead of a double, a triple for Worth.
Well, instead of the sinking fastball, again, he gets the riding fastball, the 4-seamer, and he goes the other way with it. Worth has been able to get a good pitch to hit, and he's done a good job. This ball actually stays close to the wall, and I'm sure they're going to give him a triple because he never slowed down, and he ends up at third base.
Now Greg Dobbs has had a history of success against Pelfrey. Line drive right to Castillo, who was pulled in, not quite all the way in, but most of the way in. The Mets try to cut off this run.
Well, Dobbs has hit the ball hard the last 2 times up and has nothing to show for it. One hard to Ike Davis his last time up, and this time he lines it at the second baseman, Castillo.
So 1 down. Here is Carlos Ruiz. The right side of the infield is in most of the way. The shortstop, Reyes, is in halfway. You see how they're playing it.
It's an interesting alignment, and that the shortstop is the deepest, and maybe he will have the longest throw if the ball's hit up the middle. See, when you play the infield in, you have to cut the ball off quickly, but that'll give you a chance to go to the plate if you have to. If you're playing deep and you have to circle the ball around it, you're not going to be able to throw anyone out the plate if they go on contact.
That's a fair ball. Past David Wright. Coming in to score is Jason Worth. It's a single for Ruiz. 3-1. Phillies. The Phillies 3 times now have gotten the big hit with a runner in scoring position. That's how they scored their 3 runs. The Mets have not been able to get even one of those kind of hits.
It's interesting that David Wright was, trying to cover the hole. I think when you're playing the infield in, you try to cover angles and cover the hole. He's off the line quite a bit. Ruiz is not really known as a pull hitter. He's more left center, right center kind of guy, but he pulls this one because it's a sinker down and in, and that forces him to pull it. And you can see the outfield is wet by the stream of water that's shooting up on the ground ball, on the ball.
Now Wilson Valdez, a strike. Valdez has twice been thrown out on excellent defensive plays. So he's 0 for 2, and another day might have been 2 for 2. 1 strike to count with the pitcher, Kyle Kendrick, on deck. 3-1, the Phillies are leading. And that is a ball too low. Carlos Ruiz with the big RBI. You spotlighted him at the beginning of the telecast, Joe, as he's been a key man handling that pitching staff, and directing traffic on the field,
and just being a leader.
This is the second. Castillo. There's 1, and Reyes has no chance to double up Valdez. The ball just not hit very hard. So 2 down on a runner at first with Kendrick coming up. Major League Baseball on Wednesday, a doubleheader. Wednesday night baseball doubleheader starting at 7 Eastern from Philadelphia. Young Buster Posey and the San Francisco Giants up against the Phillies. Then at 10 Eastern. Action continues with a couple of Western Division rivals from the National League. The Colorado Rockies up against Joe Torre's Dodgers. Wednesday night baseball on ESPN, also available on ESPN3.com. Today, Ubaldo Jimenez went 8 innings looking for his 18th win of the season. No Rocky pitchers ever won as many as 18 games in a full season. And he would have done it in mid-August, but they were not able to hold the lead for him. Jimenez left the game with a 5-3 lead, and Milwaukee got 2 runs in the 9th inning against the closer Houston Street. 2 unearned runs, a big error in the middle of that. But then the Rockies got a run in the bottom of the 9th and won the game anyway. But Jimenez still 17-3. So he won't be going on Wednesday. There is Castillo over to first. Kendrick is 0 for 3. But another big run for the Phillies. They lead 3-1. David Wright, Carlos Beltran, Mike Davis. Power coming up for the Mets. Baseball presented by Taco Bell. Citi Field in New York. And the hometown nine. The Mets are trailing 3-1 to Kyle Kendrick and the Phillies, with the big hitters coming up. David Wright, Carlos Beltran, and Ike Davis. But August has been a very frustrating month for David Wright. On Wednesday, Jeff Francis pitching for Colorado. He struck out 4 times after the 3rd strikeout of the night in the 6th inning. Right into the dugout. He expressed some of that frustration.
Well, I think what happens sometimes is guys say, I'm not going to make another out with that bat. And there you see his August numbers. He was 4 for 41 coming in. He's 1 for 2. But he doesn't have any RBIs this month.
He's had 11 consecutive games without an RBI, which is very unusual. And he also now has gone 46 plate appearances without an RBI, and that is the longest drought of his entire career. There's a ball too high.
You know, both of us think the same about this. Plate appearance is different because he didn't, that doesn't mean he had an opportunity to drive in a run. He could have walked.
Polanco, and there is one away.
Or they could have pitched around him, a lot of different things.
But at the same time, it's a lot of trips to the plate without driving in a run, which is very unusual for David Wright. He finished up the month of July beautifully. He had 3 consecutive multi-hit games. He was 8 for 14 in the last 3 games in July, and had 8 RBIs in that little short stretch. He's hardly had any hits since, and no RBIs, and we're watching the Mets play here on August 15th. 5 hits in his last 44 at-bats all this month. So it is
Oh, it's a long
Now 47
stretch.
plate appearances, but it also is 44 actual at-bats without an RBI.
Jerry Manuel was talking about Beltran making adjustments, because of the knee, and let's see if he's making any tonight because he was late. He's been late on a couple of the fastballs. He rolled over on one in the first inning to get a base hit, but he's been late since.
2-1 the count. Beltran had that ground ball single to right in the first, struck out in the third.
He just rolled his hands over, which is what we were talking about earlier, using his upper body rather than his legs to be able to drive the ball.
2-2 the count after that last strike, and that one stays inside. 3-2.
The problem is, a lot of times when your legs are hurting, you develop bad habits because you end up just swinging with your upper body even when your legs are healthy.
Full count. And that is just a high, lazy fly. And caught by Worth. Out number 2. Kendrick has retired 11 of his last 12 hitters faced since Reyes homered in the third.
Let's take a look at this swing. Again, it's more upper body. He doesn't roll around or open his hips. Watch his lower body, and he just kind of rolls around. There's not much there. There's not any drive there with his lower body, and that's because, as he said, you're hitting against that knee, and that knee is not well, and you also have a brace on it.
Ike Davis, a foul off the left field line. Into the crowd. Francisco Rodriguez arriving out of the bullpen. But right now, it's not a night where the Mets would need a closer, not without some offense. They are trailing 3-1. And that's a high strike.
Then we talked about this in the beginning. In order for the Mets to be a factor in the National League East, they're going to have to find some offense, and it's going to have to be consistent, not one day here, one day there, or else they're not going to be able to be a factor in the race.
Shallow left field. Rollins streaking out. He's got it. Right in between the third baseman Polanco and the left fielder Ibanez. Top of the order, Rollins, Victorino, Polanco with the Phillies leading.
Yeah.
Well, it was a tie score in the third. Now the Phillies into the 7th inning against Mike Pelfrey of the Mets. 3-1 the score. Jimmy Rollins takes ball 1. Rollins was largely responsible for the Phillies' first run. In the 3rd inning, he singled with 2 down and nobody on. So he pulls that one foul. 1 ball and 1 strike. After he singled, Victorino came up and Rollins stole 2nd. And then a little bit later, he stole 3rd. And Victorino knocked him in. And Victorino did something very similar with 2 down in the 5th inning. A single, he stole 2nd, and Polanco knocked him in. He also got an RBI single by Carlos Ruiz to bring Worth home, who tripled in the 6th inning. They lead 3-1. Pelfrey have been getting the ground balls. There have been 14 ground ball outs recorded behind Pelfrey, but 4 ground balls ended up going through for base hits against him as well. 2-2 the count to Rollins. Former National League MVP. That's a foul out of play. He had some injury problems the last couple of years. Mets bullpen will be ready if needed. That's Bobby Parnell on the left, the right-hander, and Feliciano, the left-hander, up in the pen. Pelfrey already over 100 pitches thrown in this game. Victorino on deck. And that splitter is tapped ever so slowly foul.
You know, the Phillies are 17-5 in their last 22 games, and they're not hitting on all cylinders yet. But if they get Utley back, they get Howard back, and they get any kind of pitching in from their 4th and 5th starters in the bullpen, they're going to be tough to beat. But I think Utley and Howard's being back in the lineup is going to have effect on the entire lineup.
Utley started a rehab assignment yesterday. He went 1 for 3, played 5 innings, hit a triple in that game. He's supposed to play again today and likely tomorrow. The Phillies have a day off tomorrow before they entertain the San Francisco Giants to start a 3-game series on Tuesday. Rollins with a 3-2 count, battling it out here with Pelfrey. Utley did play today and was 0 for 3 at the plate. Hit sharply by Rollins, but Ike Davis handles it. Rollins kept off the bases this time, Joe.
Well, it's a good thing he did, because Rollins has Pelfrey completely figured out, both from first base and from second base. And you see he's passing that along. Hitters talk about hitting. Base stealers talk about stealing bases and what they see in a pitcher's move, and you can see it's not even close at second. Now he's talking about at second base when he kind of rocks back, and then he can take off as soon as he sees him rock back, and you can see it right there. He takes off, and it's not even close again. He said you just take your take your hop, and just continue to go. So good thing Pelfrey was able to keep him off the bases, or we probably would have seen Rollins take off again.
Victorino to Ike Davis. Pelfrey covering for the putout. Victorino has had a hand in 2 of the Phillies' 3 runs, an RBI double and a single, a steal, and a run scored. He's kept off the bases as well this time. Phillies, Jimmy Rollins with 2 stolen bases before the Victorino double. That all happened with 2 down in the 3rd. Victorino then had a 2-out single in the 5th, stole 2nd, and Polanco singled him home. So that is making something out of very little. And it's not, I think, what you think of when you think about the Phillies these last 3-4 years. They're a club, you think of Ryan Howard and Chase Utley, guys hitting the long ball. Jason Worth. Jimmy Rollins, wasn't so long ago, he was hitting a lot of home runs too.
But what makes the team so good, John, when they're working on all cylinders, is that they can beat you with power. They can beat you with speed. They can beat you by, putting a string of singles together and running the bases well. They do everything well when they're clicking on all cylinders. Polanco thrown out by Reyes.
3 more ground ball outs, 17 ground ball outs for Pelfrey, but he is behind 3-1 in the middle of the 7th. We've had a lot of rain here tonight. Phillies lead the Mets 3-1 as we go to the last of the 7th inning. Major League Baseball congratulates Los Angeles RBI on winning the girls softball championship of the 2010 Reviving Baseball in Intercities World Series presented by KPMG. They defeated the Boys and Girls Club of Tampa Bay RBI 5-2 in a rain-shortened 5-inning championship game. Congratulations to them. We head to the last of the 7th inning. And Kyle Kendrick, who had a very poor start in his last outing on Tuesday against the Dodgers, but tonight he started off poorly. 5 of the first 10 hitters for the Mets all had hits, including the 10th, Jose Reyes, whose home run tied the game in the 3rd. Since that home run, only 1 hit, 12 at bats, plus a sacrifice. Carter is retired as Victorino called off the right fielder. Worth on that one, so Carter is gone on 1 pitch.
I really think that Chris Carter is going to be a good player, John. I know he's going to be a good hitter. He's got a nice swing. He's got quickness in his swing, and the ball jumps off his bat. It's very live. He has a very live bat.
He is 1 for 3 tonight. So now Josh Toney, the rookie catcher, has grounded out to third and flied out to center. And that sinker in there for a called strike. The only hit allowed by Kendrick since the Reyes home run in the third was Castillo's bunt hit in the 5th inning, in which he was well out of the batter's box. The more I think about it, seems like he was almost halfway to the mound now when he bunted that ball. 0-2 the count to Tolle. There's a lot of activity going on in the bullpens for both the Phillies and the Mets. Durbin, the right-hander, and J.C. Romero, the left-hander, in the Phillies bullpen. And that has been another area of concern for the Phillies here in 2010, although it seemed like it was an area of concern last year as well. A huge area of concern last year. 1 ball, 2 strikes to count, and now time is granted just as Kendrick kicked his leg in the air. Mets bullpen also working. 3-1. The Phillies lead the Mets here in the 7th. 1 out, nobody on. Tolle fouls one off to the left.
And we were talking about the bullpen. Charlie Manuel believes that was the difference in last year's World Series, that their bullpen was not able to pitch as well as they wanted. Otherwise, he felt that they would have had a better shot at beating the Yankees.
Takahashi, number 47, the left-hander, and Feliciano, also a lefty, both up in the Mets bullpen. Rollins throws out Tolle. 2 down. Kendrick is on a roll right now.
Well, John, you're seeing 2 pitchers who are very similar in what they try to do. Their out pitchers are good sinking fastball, and they're both using them very well.
Mike Pelfrey, 7 innings, 3 runs, 7 hits allowed, 17 ground ball outs, and 4 other ground balls that went for hits. Here is Castillo. He bunted his last time for a hit. Pelfrey due up next, but Jeff Francoeur has come out on deck. So if Castillo can keep the inning going, it looks as though we would see Francoeur. 1 ball, 1 strike to Castillo. There's Francoeur. Mets brought up recently Fernando Martinez, their highly thought of outfield prospect for the minors, and they also brought up Ruben Tejada, second baseman, which changes a few things in terms of playing time for both Castillo and Francoeur. Neither one of them were real happy about it. But Jerry Manuel, I think, was of the opinion, Joe, that the young guys would add some energy to the lineup, to the clubhouse. The Mets have not played that well for the last month or so.
And we talked about it earlier, the swagger that the Phillies play with and the mild-mannered guys that the Mets play with. I mean, they're most of the guys are all mild-mannered. They're just a little different than the Phillies, who walk around with a swagger.
And that is a little bit low, 3-2. The Mets were 10 games over 500 about a week before the All-Star break. There's Ruben Tejada, the young second baseman. They were 47-37 July the 6th. Only 2 games behind Atlanta at that time, and 3 games ahead of the Phillies. They are 11-21 since. That's a foul.
You know, we talked about them being hot, cold, but never consistent. And if you look at the months, that's exactly what happens. They got hot, then they go cold, and they're hot, and they're cold, and now they're still a little cold. They never had back-to-back months where they were over 500.
Since July the 7th, that 32-game stretch where they've won 11, lost 21, they've averaged 2.7 runs a game. That's 32 games. 2.7 runs per. Castillo gets a walk, so he gets on base. They need base runners. That is the first walk allowed by Kyle Kendrick, and it brings up Francoeur, and he is the possible tying run. As Charlie Manuel talks it over with Rich Doobie, that may be all for Kendrick. He's at 101 pitches, and Francoeur has had some success against Kendrick.
I'm sure that's why he's coming out. That Charlie Manuel knows that Jeff Francoeur has had some success against Kendrick. He's 9 for 22, which is at a 409 clip, and he knows that, so he doesn't want that matchup at this time of the ball game when Kendrick is not at his best.
Francoeur 9 for 22 with a homer lifetime against Kendrick. He won't face Kendrick here. Chad Durbin to head in for the Phillies bullpen. Francoeur 0 for 14 lifetime against Durbin. We'll be back. In 2/3 innings, Mets had some great opportunities against him in the first inning and early in the second inning, and then he just held the line. The only run allowed on a home run by Jose Reyes.
And on his way out, John, Kendrick acknowledged the work behind the plate of Ron Culper tonight. He kind of gave him a nod with his glove, like, well done.
So Jeff Francoeur coming up, and Francoeur here in the month of August has had a couple of big home runs that won games, including August 3rd against Billy Wagner, 9th inning in Atlanta. Opposite field homer against his old team, and that gave the Mets a 3-2 victory over the Braves. Then August 7th in Philadelphia, another opposite field home run off Cole Hamels, the only run the Mets won that game 1-0. And a mighty cut on that slider from Durbin. Foul backing out of play. They need a home run right now to tie, but he has never had a home run, never had a hit against Chad Durbin. There is Castillo over at first base. 3-1, the Phillies lead. And that's down and away. Wasn't that tough a call, I'm sure, for Charlie Manuel to make this change, since Francoeur was hitting .409 lifetime against Kendrick and is 0 for 14 in his career against Durbin. 1-1 the count. Deep left center field. Victorino at the track in front of the wall, and he's got it.
This is a big ballpark.
Maybe 15 rows deep in Philly. Phillies see some positives in this ballpark. On to the 8th inning. Ibanez, then Worth coming up. 3-1, the Phillies lead. baseball from Citi Field in New York. I'm John Miller with Joe Morgan. Phillies lead 3-1 over the Mets as we head to the 8th inning. The Mets go to their bullpen for the left-handed reliever, Pedro Feliciano, who drops a strike in there to Raul Ibanez. 2 of the 3 Philly hitters due up in this inning are left-handed. Jason Worth, a right-hander on deck. Dobbs, the left-hander, due up third. Nice. Emphasize due up. They have some right-handed hitters they might go to.
You know, we were talking about the Mets bringing up the young players, Tejada and Martinez. The Phillies brought up their prize rookie, Dominic Brown. And when I talked to Charlie Manuel about him, he said that he was holding his own. He still has a ways to go, but he is going to be a special player.
There he is.
And he had some RBIs in the short stretch here, 11 RBIs.
Well, there have been some outstanding rookies come into the National League this year. Jason Hayward, of course, with Atlanta, who homered his first trip to the plate on opening day. And a 1-ball, 2-strike count.
Well, the one that they're all talking about, Dusty Baker was talking to me about him, and Charlie Manuel today, Mike Stanton, the one from Florida.
Yeah.
They said that kid is special.
And Dominic Brown played with and against those guys in the Arizona Fall League this past offseason. And he saw how good they were and is very excited even to have a chance to come up this year with those other guys. He said there was no question those guys were going to be in the big leagues and be successful. Stanton has got great power and a strong arm from the outfield. He's had his growing pains, and Jason Hayward has had some growing pains this year.
But I think Stanton is starting to get it together.
And that's all for Ibanez. Now let's go to the studio. Steve Berthiaume in the Sports Center right now. All right, Steve, thank you. The Giants also with an excellent rookie, Buster Posey. He had a home run today for the Giants, although Tim Lincecum, the Giants' top pitcher, Cy Young Award winner in the National League 2 years running, got roughed up second time this week at home. He did not finish the 4th inning against the Padres today. 6 runs allowed by Lincecum in 3 2/3 innings. 0-2 the count to Jason Worth. He lunged at that one down out of the strike zone. Still 0-2. Worth has singled, been hit by a pitch, and tripled and scored a run.
It's interesting when you look at Jason Worth's numbers because he's a good hitter, but he has struck out 5 more times than Ryan Howard in a lot fewer at bats. So it's kind of interesting. You know, we talked about Ryan Howard cutting down on his strikeouts this year, but nice.
Ike Davis, look out. He vaulted right over the railing, but he was able to keep a hand on that railing to avoid a possible nasty fall in there.
Well, that's the energy of the young players that they were talking about bringing up. A lot of energy there, and also pretty smart. He knows how to hold on.
Man, I think he even got a glove on that. The ball just right off the tip of the glove. Jose Reyes. And that's out number 2. Ike Davis has made some spectacular plays. Back on April 21st, Jeff Baker, the Cubs here, over by the Mets dugout, and hello into the dugout. And again, he held on May the 8th, Pablo Sandoval of the Giants hit this pop-up, and he made a spectacular catch. And almost here tonight on Sunday Night Baseball, but not quite. Again, wrapping an arm around that railing. Pinch hitter for the Phillies now. And Mike Sweeney, just recently acquired from the Seattle Mariners, comes up. The Mets have a right-hander, Bobby Parnell, up in their bullpen. If Jerry Manuel wants to make a change. So Sweeney pinch hitting for Dobbs with the left-hander in there. Sweeney for many years. There's Parnell. Let's see, that's the Phillies bullpen. I beg your pardon. That is Ryan Matson, the 8th inning setup man. And that slider is over the outside for a strike to Sweeney. In the rain here in New York. Sweeney was a teammate for a while this year in Seattle with Cliff Lee, who helped the Phillies get to the World Series last year, and then was the only pitcher to win a game against the Yankees in the World Series. And he said he and Cliff Lee, he was asking Lee about it because Sweeney's never been to the postseason. And he said Lee told him it was the best time he ever had being a Philly. Great group of guys, and they did a lot of winning. Mike Sweeney, 1,436 career games without being in a postseason. Randy Wynn, now with the Cardinals. Michael Young of the Rangers. There've been a few more. That's a base hit to the opposite field. Castillo is shaded over toward the middle, playing into pull, and Sweeney crossed him up. Hit number 8 for the Phils. The Little League World Series continues on ESPN2 tomorrow as Newtown, Pennsylvania meets Toms River, New Jersey in the Mid-Atlantic Regional Final. The Little League World Series presented by Kellogg's Frosted Flakes. Reduced sugar on ESPN2 Monday at 8 Eastern. Oral's going to be involved in that again this year. Feliciano is going to depart now, and Bobby Parnell will come in with 2 down, a runner at first, and the catcher Carlos Ruiz, a right-handed hitter, coming up. 3-1, the Phillies are leading, and we'll be right back. Half of the 8th inning, 2 down. Sweeney, the runner at first, as Bobby Parnell takes the mound for the Mets. Parnell in his 25th game in the big leagues this year. 3.74 ERA. And he's allowed 26 hits in 21 2/3 innings. Average just about a strikeout per inning. Sweeney away from first. Davis on the bag with him. Carlos Ruiz A foul off the right field side. 31,345, the official paid crowd here at Citi Field for this game on a rainy night in New York. Mets hit the road after the game. They go to Houston for 3 and then Pittsburgh for 3. They have not done well away from Citi Field. David Wright, tough hop. Pops in the air, barehanded, no play. Sweeney over to second.
Well, he made the right play to charge the ball and try to get it on the short hop. He just was not able to come up with it. Now watch, you want to get the ball on the big hop or the short hop. He tries to get it on the short hop. He can't get there in time, so it's kind of in between, and it hits off the heel of his glove. So you try to get there quickly, but he just could not get there quick enough to get the short hop.
And charged with an error for his trouble. That is the 15th error charge to David Wright this year. Wilson Valdez now for the Phillies. Phillies trying to take this series from the Mets in a ballpark that has been very bad news for them this year. And they lost here 1-0 on Friday. Cole Hamels pitched a brilliant game and lost it 1-0. R.A. Dickey pitched a one-hitter to beat him. That was the 4th straight shutout for the Phillies against the Mets here. But they got a few runs last night. They only drove in one of them as Takahashi gets ready in the bullpen now, another left-hander. Cole Hamels not only was victimized by a lack of support, they only had the one hit on his behalf. He's the one who got it. But they won yesterday back of Roy Halladay, who's won 5 in a row. You mentioned that 17-5 stretch that they're in right now. Roy Halladay has gone 5-0 in that period. Here's Halladay, who was brilliant last night. He got 15 wins for the Phillies. He's 5-0 with a 1.62 ERA in 5 starts during their hot streak. Back out of play. Valdez 0 for 3.
John, we've always talked about if you could get to the playoffs, what does your starting staff look like? And if you get to the playoffs, the Phillies would be able to throw Halladay, Hamels, and Oswalt. Those 3 can match up against any 3 pitchers on any other team. So if you can get to the playoffs, you got a great shot if you're the Phillies. And look at those numbers.
Dominic Brown on deck. Those guys have all been aces. Right to the center fielder, Carlos Beltran. Valdez retired. Last of the 8th, the top of the order for the Mets. 6 outs left to them. They trail 3-1. And here comes Jose Reyes. His home run came in the 3rd inning. It is still the only run for the Mets. They've only had one hit since the 3rd inning as we start the last of the 8th. That was a bunt single by Luis Castillo. Reyes singled in the 1st, thrown out trying to steal, homered in the 3rd, and then lined out to short in the 5th inning. The only time they've had a runner in scoring position since the 3rd inning. Castillo got to 2nd after his bunt hit. Here's Ryan Madson to face him. And Reyes shows bunt, takes a called strike. New first baseman for the Phillies, Mike Sweeney, stays in after pinch hitting for Dobbs. 3rd baseman Polanco playing shallow into the grass with a speedy Reyes. Got jammed and pops it up. Jimmy Rollins looking up into the rain. A very light rain once again falling here at Citi Field. 1 out. Angel Pagan comes up. This is really just a sprinkle now. 3-1. The Phillies lead the Mets. The Reyes home run notwithstanding, it's been a night for small ball, little ball, or as Azagian once called it, smart ball.
Well, that's one of the things that separates these two teams as well. The Phillies have several ways of winning a ball game. And the Mets are basically built around their pitching staff and nothing else. Their offense is almost non-existent at times.
2.7 runs a game the last 32 games. Going back to early July. And that's just a very long period of time to be scoring that few runs.
Definitely. And also, John, you mentioned the fact earlier that they were hitting some home runs, more than they hit last year. Yet they're just having trouble scoring runs because they're not hitting with runners in scoring position.
And Carlos Beltran is back. They're slugging center fielder, but sort of in name only. He's not the Beltran with that surgically repaired right knee on which he's wearing a big brace. That Beltran is not the one that's been in the lineup so far. 1-2 the count. And Pagan sees it go to 2-2. He is 0 for 3. J.C. Romero up in the bullpen. The Mets also with some action going just on the other side of the fence as the left-hander Takahashi warms up for New York. And Pagan down on strikes for the 2nd time. He's 0 for 4. Ryan Madson, 2 quick outs. He's tough. He's the setup man generally in front of Brad Lidge. Lidge has had some adventures in closing, so whether we see him or not remains to be seen. But Madson, who pitched here last night, gave up a couple of hits in the 9th inning and hit a batter. Mets had the bases loaded in the 9th inning, but Madson ended up striking out the side during the same inning, and they did not score. Madson threw 26 pitches in that game.
I think Lidge is the guy. I think he will get first shot at closing if they have this lead.
Absolutely. Well, what I was talking about was more if it remains a save situation.
Oh, yeah.
2-0 to David Wright, who has singled, grounded out to 3rd twice. So he is 1 for 3. You mentioned the run drought for the Mets. David Wright, no RBIs this month. And that's inside. He's been a top RBI man. David Wright, 27 years old. And he walks. And that makes Beltran the possible tying run. Dan Warthen there in the foreground. Or on the phone, I beg your pardon. For the Mets bullpen. So Wright Saying hello to Mike Sweeney, the first baseman. Gets his lead. Away from first as Beltran stands in. Takes a strike. Beltran has singled, struck out, and hit a fly ball to right.
And if you're Matson, you want to keep the ball away, run it away, because he would have trouble driving the ball the other way out of the ballpark. There it is. Just stay out there if you're Matson. And then try to get him to chase something out of the strike zone.
Quickly, 2 strikes to Carlos Beltran. Ike Davis, a slugger, on deck. There's right at first. 1 and 2. Beltran has had some success against Matson in the past. 7 for 17, and in particular 3 home runs in 17 at bats. So he's been a real problem for Matson quite often in the past.
Well, they're going through a lot of signs. Tells you that maybe Matson wants to throw in something off speed, and that would allow him to pull the ball with his upper body, just using his upper body. So he tried to stay away.
The changeup struck him out. So it goes for the Mets right now. 9th inning. The pitcher's spot and the top of the order, Rollins and Victorino. What wheel-turning action, Joe. The pitcher, Parnell, went out to warm up. Dominic Brown, the left-handed batting rookie, was introduced as a pinch hitter for Matson, at which point Jerry Manuel, the Mets manager, went out and removed Parnell and brought in the left-hander, Takahashi. Now, the right-handed hitting Ben Francisco has come out in place of Dominic Brown. One change precipitating another change, precipitating a third change. Coverage of Major League Baseball will continue on ESPN on Wednesday, a doubleheader. Wednesday Night Baseball starting at 7 Eastern. The St. Phillies up against Buster Posey. Aubrey Huff of the San Francisco Giants. And at 10 Eastern, the Dodgers and the Colorado Rockies will face off. Dodgers need to either get hot or they're about to fall out of any race whatsoever. Wednesday Night Baseball on ESPN, also available at ESPN3.com. The division leaders right now in the National League, the Braves at the moment, 2.5 over the Phillies. The Reds by 1 over the Cardinals in the Central. And the Padres by 3.5 over the Giants after taking 2 out of 3 from the Giants in San Francisco. The Giants by a half game over the Phillies and the Cardinals. The Rockies only 5 out of the wild card. The Dodgers 6.5 out. But the Dodgers especially have been heading the wrong way here lately. And they'll play the Dodgers, and they've had a hard time beating the Dodgers, especially in L.A. Here is Hisanori Takahashi in for the Mets bullpen. The veteran of many a year in the Japanese leagues.
Well, they've used him as a starter on occasion. I saw him start a game against the Yankees, and he pitched great. I mean, he has good stuff, good fastball, good breaking ball.
Takahashi, 35 years old, and a former member of the Giants, the Yomiuri Tokyo Giants of the Japanese Central League. And he was mostly a starter in his 10 years with the Giants over in Tokyo. And when they started having a lot of injury problems this year with their rotation, Joe, that's when Takahashi moved into the rotation. He did a great job. Francisco leads off, and it's 0-1. Francisco to hit for Dominic Brown, the very highly touted rookie for the Phillies. And Takahashi just off the outside. 1 ball, 1 strike. 3-1. The Phillies lead the Mets. Ben Francisco hitting .254, 4 homers, 21 batted in 142 at bats. And a foul out of play. A ball and 2 strikes. I'm John Miller with Joe Morgan from Citi Field in New York. And the Phillies with injuries to some of their top sluggers, Chase Utley, Ryan Howard, both on the disabled list, although perhaps both back as early as Tuesday. Out of action, the Phillies have played a different kind of game here tonight. Into the hole at short. Reyes, a long throw. 1 away.
And John, when you look at the Phillies, like last week we were talking about the Boston Red Sox. They've had 15 guys on the DL. 7 of them were All-Stars or former All-Stars. And last week with Boston, they had 16 on the list, and 9 were former or present All-Stars. But every projected starter, except Jason Worth, has been on the DL for the Phillies this year. And there you see it.
This is something that they really did not have to worry about so much last year. Last year, they were the 3rd team in Major League history to have 6 different players start 150 games or more. That ball is back out of play. Jason Worth is the only player who even has a chance to play or to start as many as 150 games this year. They've had serious injury problems for Utley, Ryan Howard, Placido Polanco spent time in the disabled list. That was a ball back out of play. And it's 1 ball and 2 strikes. Victorino has had some injury problems. So that's the kind of year it's been for the Phillies. And yet they're right there in the thick of it. And they should get Utley back on Tuesday just in time for their showdown with the Giants in Philly. 3-game series at Citizens Bank Park. The Giants and Phillies Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. Now, the Giants are starting a very difficult part of they've already played the Padres, the first place team. Now they play the Phillies. Then they go to St. Louis. And they go home and they play the Cincinnati Reds.
Well, the problem, they're going to have problems with those teams if Tim Lincecum doesn't get back on his game.
Jimmy Rollins now 1 for 5 in this game. Chipper Jones on Tuesday. He fielded this ground ball by Houston's Hunter Pence. And when he jumped in the air to make the throw, it was quite a play. But when he landed, he stayed on the ground. He was in pain. It turns out he tore his ACL ligament, and he's already had season-ending surgery. A very sad sight in the Atlanta dugout. Chipper Jones out for the year. Martin Prado, an all-star for the Braves, also nursing an injury right now. He's been on the disabled list. So the Braves, nonetheless, atop the division and getting great pitching from Tim Hudson. Victorino deep into left center field. One hop up against the wall. He's to second, and he'll stop there as Beltran gets it back in. That's the third hit of the night for Victorino. 2 doubles and a single. On a night where the Phillies have 3 runs, he's knocked in a run and scored a run.
When Beltran was out, Pagan played center field, and he played it very well. And since Beltran has been back, he's been put into center field. I saw the other day where Torrey Hunter moved to right field, in Anaheim. Well, the Angels, the Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim.
They're walking Polanco intentionally here with the left-handed batting Ibanez on deck.
I just wonder if that would ease some of the pressure on Beltran's knee, because when you play center field, you're running from gap to gap, and you're running all over to back up all the outfield plays. I just wonder if that would help him to sort of regain his strength in his knee quicker.
Well, he didn't look like he was moving well.
No, on that ball.
That deep drive.
That's why it came to mind. I was watching him go after that last fly ball, and that is not like Beltran that I've seen over the years. Here he is up here at the top. And you can see he's not really chasing that ball. You see the limp, and he's just not able to generate any full speed on that knee.
Beltran, there weren't many better than him in center field when he was fully healthy. Ibanez, the left-handed hitter, with 2 men on and 2 men out. High fastball for a strike. Ibanez is 0 for 4 in this game. 3-1. The Phillies lead the Mets here in the 9th inning. 9 hits for the Phillies now. Brad Lidge all set to go in the bullpen. He'll have to face some left-handed hitters. Ike Davis, Chris Carter, and Josh Tolley, all 3 left-handed batters, due up to start the last half of the 9th inning. Charlie Manuel, Philly manager, wouldn't mind if the Phillies just went ahead and got another run or 2 here. That's a called strike. 1-2. Victorino getting a long lead from second base with each pitch there by Takahashi. Very long, as you call it, secondary lead. He stole a bag after getting a 2-out single in the 5th. Stole second. Polanco knocked him in. That is how the Phillies took the lead in this game. And they're running, both of them. But a swinging strike 3 by Ibanez. He is 0 for 5 with 3 strikeouts.
And I guarantee you that distracted him watching Victorino take off from second base.
Brad Lidge to come on. Looking for the save here. Davis, Carter, Tolley, all 3 left-handed hitters due up for the Mets. lunch box night at Citi Field. And they're turning those lunch pails into rally caps.
Well, the Mets need a rally cap, John, because the Mets and the Cubs are the only teams to go into the ninth inning losing and not be able to win a ball game. So when they've trailed in the ninth inning, it has been over.
And they're facing Brad Lidge, who has never blown a save against the Mets in his career. 15 for 15, one of only 3 pitchers who are perfect for their careers against the Mets with a minimum of 15 save chances. John Smoltz was one, and a former Met, Randy Myers, was the other. Now Brad Lidge. Ike Davis over the outside corner at 89 miles an hour. Fastball hits 0-1. Amazing. The Mets have not won a game where they were trailing after 8 all year. And the Cubs, who are having a very bad year, are the only other team. That is foul. He was out of the front foot of that slider and yanked it foul. 0-45, trailing after 8. The Mets, in their last 32 games, have averaged less than 3 runs a game. Averaging less than what the Phillies have put up tonight. Oh, that's all for Ike Davis.
The difference in Ike Davis now and the Ike Davis we saw earlier in the year, he was not missing his pitches. He pulled the pitch before foul. He was not missing that pitch before. He was hitting the line drive someplace or putting the ball in play. Now he seems to be hitting for 2 strikes a lot, and he seems like he's looking for the ball away. That one was away, but he was called out on the strikes earlier in the game on a fastball in. So it looks like he's thinking more now, or they've caused him to think a little bit more, and he's not reacting as well.
Chris Carter, 1 for 3, and that's a swing. 0-1 the count. The Mets have only 1 hit since Jose Reyes led off the 3rd inning with a home run for their only run of the night. And that was a bunt single by Castillo in the 5th inning. And he hangs that slider. 1 ball, 1 strike. Carter had a single leading off the 2nd inning and got as far as 3rd base. There is rookie Josh Tolley on deck. Hit well to deep right field, but a lot of room out there, and Worth out number 2. Our Chevrolet players of the game are those 2 speed burners at the top of the order for the Phillies. When you consider they're leading by 2 runs, these guys were the difference. Jimmy Rollins and Shane Victorino. Rollins, who singled with 2 down and nobody out of the 3rd, stole 2nd, stole 3rd. Victorino knocked him in, the first Phillies run. Victorino, a 2-out single in the 5th inning with nobody on. Stole 2nd. Polanco knocked him in. For good measure, Victorino added another double later on in the game that did not factor in the scoring. Pretty good night for both of them in a tight game. Their ability to steal some bases, get themselves into scoring position, the difference. 1-1 the count to Josh Tolley. The rookie catcher is 0 for 3, 23 years old. And there is another young Met, 21-year-old Fernando Martinez on deck. Victorino. The Phillies have taken the series from the Mets, and they are in a virtual tie for the wild card lead with the Giants, heading into a home series with the Giants starting Tuesday in Philly. The 16th consecutive save turned in by Brad Lidge against the New York Mets, and he did it on only 9 pitches. The Phillies are 18-5, and they could well be welcoming back Chase Utley, if not both Utley and Ryan Howard, come Tuesday when they open their big series with the Giants.
And that will make a big difference in this lineup. They will still have the speed burners at the top, but they'll bring back lots of power with Ryan Howard and Chase Utley.
Lidge with his 16th save of the year. Mike Pelfrey, kind of a hard luck loser. 3-1 the Phillies over the Mets on a wet night in New York. Up next is Sports Center. Stay tuned for that. This has been a presentation of ESPN, the worldwide leader in sports. We'll see you next Sunday from the beautiful new ballpark in Minneapolis, Twins and Angels. Until then, for Joe Morgan.